A lot can happen in a decade. Dynasties can rise, and they can fall.
Michigan makes a stand!
Miracles may be witnessed. Tears can be shed from joy or from pain. Dreams can be crushed, or they can come true.
All right, what's up, everybody? Episode 52 of College Football Rush, man. Appreciate you guys rocking out with me. I am everybody's favorite couch quarterback, Dante, here with another episode of this, man. Look, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in college football, and a lot of it has to do around with a bunch of teams having openings and, you know, a couple of coaches on the hot seat and just the uncertainty of week to week that's happening. I don't think I've seen... Well, I say this every year, right? And it seems to be this way. But, like, when it gets to this part of the season, it seems like every team is beatable except for a handful. And even those teams, you know, week to week, we think are beatable, right? You know, you look at the Mizzou versus Alabama game, thinking that they were going to lose that game. Nope. Alabama comes out on top, and then we're reevaluating our top 25 week to week and who our favorite quarterbacks are around, you know, obviously college football. So, yeah, we just get it right into it, man. You know, first things first, shout out to everybody that's going to watch this or, you know, is watching this right now, like my man Logan and Elijah. Appreciate you guys being here in the chat. Let's get the rundown of the topics, man. What is the best open job in football right now? And it's between two teams. If you guys seen the thumbnail, you know which two teams that we're going to be talking about. What is the fate of Mike Norvell at this point in time in the college football landscape? You know, there are some rumblings coming out of that camp of what's going on. And, of course, that's my team, the team that I root for. And I got some thoughts on that. Who's the scariest team right now in college football? It's possibly a team that, you know, a lot of you guys aren't considering. But if you look at their statement of work, it's been pretty impressive, and it's a team down there in the Big 12. Actually, fairly new in the last couple of years to the Big 12 as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting. And then, of course, get into our game of the week, predictions for the rest of the week, and then our betting over-unders, money line, spreads. We got that all for you. I think we ended 4-6 last week, so we've been doing pretty good. As long as you guys don't bet my predictions as of last week, they were horrible. I was 1-9. I did not do well. So, but let's get right into the first topic, man. What's the best job between Penn State and Florida? Well, I got a lot of thoughts on that, and I'm leaning one way, and it kind of hurts my soul to talk about it. So, a couple weeks ago, James Franklin loses his job at Penn State. Drew Aller breaks his ankle. Then they're dealing with the transfer portal happening the way that it did, wherein Bo Prabula is doing so well with Missouri. They get 3 transfer wide receivers in. Both of their star running backs come in. Ando Kolonicki's into his, I believe, his second year. They go and get Jim Knowles. Their whole offensive line comes back. They're waiting for you know, guys to step up on that defense. And then they hit a skid where they're losing to UCLA and Northwestern. Crazy stuff has happened. Regardless of how you feel about James Franklin and his tenureship there, it's no need to argue this anymore. He is gone. Then you look at Florida's side, right? Just to kind of give a recap, Billy Napier did what he did at Louisiana, worked his way up. They call him Sunbelt Billy for a reason, right? G5 Billy, whatever you want to call him. And comes into Florida, does what he does, has Anthony Richardson as his first quarterback, you know, has a couple of quarterbacks after that, then eventually lands on DJ Lagway due to, you know, the other quarterback getting injured last year. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Wisconsin transfer. DJ Lagway looks good, and a lot of people at the beginning of the season are like, "My goodness, this dude is going to be a Heisman candidate. They're going to win a national championship." And then the downfall of that happens. They lose a couple games that they shouldn't lose, and then he wins against Mississippi State this past weekend and continues to lose his job in the whole grand scheme of things. So where do we land with all this? Well, if I had to be completely honest with you, the better job is the Florida Gators job. Look, there's no better rivalries than what Florida has, especially when the state of Florida is good. And, we'll get into Penn State's rivals or rivalry games, the two top ones, as they say. But the two top, rivalry games are in the state of Florida. And then if you want to say one that's bigger than that, the rivalry against Georgia, where they play a neutral site game at Jacksonville's Everbank Stadium. The Florida State versus Florida, Miami versus Florida rivalry games are high sellers anywhere you go. It's a game that you pay attention to regardless of how bad those two teams suck. And even the Georgia-Florida game. Now, when Penn State goes up against guys like Ohio State, they have a history of losing to Ohio State, Michigan, and then their other rivals, Pittsburgh. That's even if that's on their schedule to play that year, right? And so their rivalry games, in a nutshell, they have a rivalry against Syracuse. Like, these games just do not amount to the pressure that Florida goes and gets year to year. The one thing that they look forward to is their whiteout game, right? Their whiteout game is okay, depending on who they schedule. We've had Auburn in the past. We've had a couple other teams, most recently Oregon, which they lost. And so their whiteout game has not been known to be the best game ever in this whole scheme of things. And so, if you look at it in that aspect, it's actually been very, very, very disappointing in the grand scheme of things. So Florida is, of course, the better job. And if you want to get into kind of the nitty gritty of things, Florida's warm weather versus cold. If you ever been up to State College, it gets cold up there. I live in the state of Pennsylvania. It gets cold up here, man. Not as cold as a Buffalo, but you're going to get your fair share of snow. Then you got to navigate throughout that, and then you have to play all these northern schools too. You got to go play Ohio State when it's cold. You got to go play Michigan, Northwestern, Wisconsin. The list just goes on and on and on. So your schedule doesn't favor you, and then you have to travel. Now that USC and UCLA and those teams are in Oregon and Washington, you got to go play those teams on the West Coast. The other upside is the Florida recruits. If you don't know, there's 3 states that are known as the big 3 when it comes to recruiting. These are the schools that you want to recruit over and over and over if you can. Some of the best talent comes from there. Texas is being one of them, California is being the other, and Florida is the other one. Those are the big 3. And if you can't recruit well in those states, especially if you're some of these southern schools or schools within those regions, and then you have Georgia right there, who's another hotbed, and Louisiana, who's across the way, and Alabama, who's across the way, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. Penn State is not recruiting those schools. They're recruiting New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, of course, maybe Ohio, maybe Maryland. Pennsylvania is a hotbed in its own, but it's not any of these big 3s. I would even say Georgia and Louisiana are probably bigger hotbeds than Pennsylvania is in a lot of aspects of things. So you have that. And then if you're a coach, what's appealing is just how Scott Strickland has dealt with the adversity and the leash that he gave Billy Napier during his whole tenureship. You have a athletic director that's going to work with you when the times get low. He's going to stick by you until he can't stick by you anymore. I'm not sure if the next coach is going to get that long of a leash, but it is nice to know that the powers that be are willing to work with guys like like a Billy Napier for so long and stand behind your guy regardless win, lose, or draw. And then eventually he was just forced to pull the plug. But that's also got to be appealing, that they're going to be patient while you try to build this thing from the ground up. Not sure how Penn State is going to deal with that, since, James Franklin was such a great recruit that he was able to bring in and kind of patch up that school, but it came off the back of guys like Bill O'Brien coming in there and doing what they did after that whole debacle with Joe Paterno and Jerry Sandusky, right? Also, I think stadium-wise, the crowds at the Swamp week to week versus the crowds at Penn State, it's a much harder place to play in the Swamp than it is Penn State. You only have to fear them one time a year, to be completely honest with you. Nobody fears going into playing Penn State unless it's the whiteout game. And still, I think we can kind of say that that's kind of being overrated. In the Swamp, it's always damn near sold out every damn week of the season. And so girls have how bad their teams have sucked too. So you have that. Then I guess the last thing is, because Florida's had success with so many different coaches, that yes, they expect the next guy to come in and be great, right? But the comparisons that get made to Joe Paterno at Penn State have to set on the shoulders of you, and it's just a high bar to meet. These schools are very similar in a lot of aspects, but they're also so different in what is appealing to be coaching at one or the other. I don't think it's a debate here. I've been seeing this conversation going around for a very long time. Not a very long time, but ever since James Franklin got fired and Billy Napier got let go, it's been the constant back and forth discussions on which school is going to be better to coach at or what's the better job. And I'm here to tell you, Florida overall, it's almost a clean sweep that Florida is the better job at this point in time, just by everything that I said. So, yeah, and Elijah agrees with me. Florida is the better job. Let's get over to another Florida school, which is my school, Florida State. Oh, man, it's been a circus at Florida State for a hot minute, and it came off the backing of last year's debacle. It came off the backing of having a 13-0 season before we lost to Georgia really, really bad 2 years ago. And now it's coming, the highs and the lows are just extraordinary at this point in time for Florida State to try to keep up with. And all the brunt is going to fall on your coach's shoulders, right? It's not the NFL where people can easily just point to the quarterback. But I don't think Tommy is without any, any criticism at this point in time. There was news that came out that the school had met with Mike and was, Mike Norvell, and let him know that, pretty much your fate is going to be decided after the season. And I don't know if we even have the cachet to even deal with letting Mike Norvell and, Tony White and Gus Malzahn go this soon because of the price tag that's associated with them. We'll get to that in a little bit. But here's what I have to look at moving forward. We cannot lose to Wake Forest. We cannot lose to Virginia Tech. If we lose one of those games or both of those games, no matter what happens, he should be fired. And I've stood behind Mike Norvell, and I've stood behind the mission, and I stood behind how passionate he was about this school. But there's something that's not giving. And one thing is whatever the decision was for him not to call plays, he should be calling plays. If you're hiring a coach and he was calling plays before, a lot of people think that he's one of the most creative coaches in college football on the offensive play calling side, especially the things that he used to do at Memphis before he even got here. The reason why he got the job in the first place. And if you're not letting him call plays, then why the hell is he, why the hell is he not? That's what you hired him to do. And I've heard this from several different players and coaches this week too. And I was on the other side of this that maybe, the head coaches shouldn't call plays, but I've kind of come around the curve and said, if this is what they were doing before and that's what they got hired to do, then why aren't they doing it right now? It drives me nuts. And I think one thing has to be said about this year specifically and these last couple of years is the transfer portal couldn't save me, couldn't save him. It couldn't save this team from being as bad as they are right now. And one of the problems lies with just the mismanagement of this team. I look across the board, right? And I'm still trying to figure out who is our number one running back. We go and get Roydell Williams from Alabama, a couple years ago. We go and get Gavin Sawchuk this year from Oklahoma. But then you have Keziah Holmes, you have Cam Davis, you have Jalen Lucas, you have Samuel Singleton Jr., and you have Zay Parks. Who is our number one guy? I know some of those guys are banged up, but who is our number one guy? I couldn't tell you. And I think I'll stand by this. And I think a lot of people, there was a lot of people that were like, Florida State's back. But here's the thing. We made the wrong move going to go get Thomas Castellanos. I'm going to just let you know that right now. And it's even more evident at this point. Yeah, has he been playing really, really good? And is he flashy? Of course. I've even defended Tommy Castellanos. But we pass up on a guy like Chandler Morris, who beat us, by the way, at Virginia. Or we should have done everything that we could to keep a young talent that wanted to be here before he transferred to Mississippi State, and his name is Luke Kromenhoek. Why didn't we keep Luke Kromenhoek on this team? I'm at a loss of words of why we let that kid walk. I was super excited to see him play. Just to bring in Tommy Castellanos in the circus, the guy who quit on his team. I will always say that he quit on Boston College, and we took a quitter in the transfer portal and brought him here. I'll be forever disappointed in the decisions that got made because of that. And it honestly pissed me off when I saw that happened. Makes it very hard to root for this team. But I was a believer, but I think it's time to rip the Band-Aid off at Florida, to be completely honest. If we're gonna continue to stay irrelevant, might as well rip the Band-Aid off, and it's gonna cost you a lot of money. It's gonna cost you $100 million to get rid of this staff. Everybody that got hired on, it's gonna cost you $100 million. But it's $100 million mistake because all this success seems like it was riding off Jordan Travis when he was here. Who I wasn't a big fan of, but he stepped up at the end of that season and was awesome. And he had to retire from football, which is crazy. Here's the other thing that we're hanging on. We're hanging on a win over Alabama. And Alabama is hanging on a loss to us that made them excel. Let me say that again. We are hanging off the win over Alabama, which made us think our team was better than everybody else. And Alabama is hanging off the loss to us, to Florida State, and they're excelling. It's harder to prepare week to week coming off a win than it is week to week coming off a loss. And you're seeing that firsthand. And that has to do with coaching, and the coaching has let this team settle in to make them believe that they were better than they actually were, instead of saying, look, we got a long season to go. Beating Alabama was big, but let's not act like Nick Saban was there and had Derrick Henry as his running back. We beat a team that didn't have, two of their offensive linemen in that game, and Jan Miller wasn't in that game? What are we doing? And a defense that made a ton of mistakes against us? Oh, yeah. Go watch the film. You could see we were easily beatable. We just didn't, we just had the juice at the right time. This should have been the year that we came back when Clemson has been so bad. Clemson pretty much is on a silver platter that says, here, come and beat us because we are terrible this year. The offense is not the problem, though. Offense is ranked number 2 in the country. Scoring offense is ranked number 10. Rushing offense is ranked 5th. Passing offense is ranked 17th. But our defense is where things have fallen off. We're 52nd in opponent points scored, and opponent yards. We're ranked 65th. That's a team that beat Alabama, and we beat them with our defense. Our defense was really good in that game. So yeah, I don't have any more things to say about Mike Norvell other than you can't lose to Virginia Tech and you can't lose to Wake Forest. Or there's going to be a lot of boosters that's ready to buy you out, just like we did Willie Taggart a couple years ago. Well, Florida State is not good, and I'm saying this just as a football fan. When Florida State's not good, football's not good. Because the only thing that people watch the ACC for was watching us and Clemson play eventually. Because the rest of these teams have not been good. And we're letting teams like Virginia and Georgia Tech at 1 and 2 respectively. We haven't even won a conference game this year. That's embarrassing. We haven't won a conference game, but won against Alabama. But not a conference game. That's crazy. Yeah, we got to talk about the scariest team in college football right now, guys. And shout out to the chat. Let me actually get over there. Mike's got to go. It's been a circus since Jameis left. Even that 13-0 season and the quarterback didn't break his leg that season, they still would have been destroyed in the playoffs. Oh, you talking about Oh, yeah. I got you. Yeah, it's a shame what happened. Jordan Travis, dude, was a dog for Florida State. Yep. Yeah, it's either Mike locks in or he's gone. I agree. I don't think we can have our backs against the wall. I think somebody's going to come with some serious money and be like, go find a coach. I'm tired of this shit. All right. Guys, we got to talk about BYU. If you haven't been watching BYU this year, they've been incredibly good and the best team in the Big 12 and one of the only undefeated teams in college football right now. And I think a lot of it's easy to say that like it's easy to say that the team that they have is really, really good, but this is a team full of 2 and 3 stars. Kalani Sitake is such a great coach. Such a great coach. And you watch how passionate he is with his players every single week that they play football. And that's one of the reasons why they're so fun to watch. I mean, you take it like their last 3 recruiting classes, right? 2023, 58th. 2024, 44. 2025, 43rd. I mean, they're okay recruiting classes. And this is the team that's undefeated right now. And they don't go into transfer portal and go and just buy a ton of players either. Last year, they were a tiebreaker away from making the Big 12 championship after having a 2-win season before. This is the team that beat the brakes off of Colorado in the bowl game. That was supposed to be the Big 12 championship according to a lot of people, and BYU was really, really good at the first half stretch of that season. Let's think about the quarterbacks that these guys have had over the last couple of years. Zach Wilson, number 1 overall pick. Jaron Hall went to the Vikings. Keaton Slovis, I forgot what team he went to. Jake Retzlaff, who's now with the Tulane Green Wave. And now they have true freshman Bear Bachmeier as their quarterback. And we'll come back to that situation and why that's relevant. And the one thing that I can honestly say about BYU, they always schedule. Their schedule is always tough, and they schedule that way for a reason. I think they just always want to stay in the fight. In 2021, they had 5 Pac-12 teams on their schedule, including 2 ranked wins versus Utah and Arizona State, I believe, in the first 5 weeks. And it was funny, when I was at the Senior Bowl, I interviewed Jaron Hall because I felt like his season there in 2021 was disrespected because Zach Wilson was so good the previous year, but he never played the caliber of opponents that Jaron played. So I always question myself, like, why did Zach get so much love for playing less of opponents and you came in and your team was really, really good? I just always always question that. I even interviewed Jaren's teammate and, friend of the show, Isaac Rex. And Isaac Rex was telling me, like, yeah, man, we had some really good teams, and just you guys could go watch it on the channel. He was even talking about how Keaton was such a good guy, and Jaren was a good guy, and previous to him, Zach was, he had a lot of great teammates. And so, I'm a big fan of BYU. Got to interview two of those guys, great guys. And Isaac's a friend of the show, had a little tough stint in the NFL, didn't really make a team. So, spending a lot of time with his family. So shout out to him if he's watching. The one thing about Kalani is I don't see him leaving for another school. And that was the best thing. The best thing that happened to BYU was joining the Big 12, because I think once they joined the big boy league, coming over from being an independent school the year before, when they had their 8-win season, was joining the Big 12 and having a purpose. And Kalani felt like, all right, we're here and we can compete and we could be in the college football playoff, which we should have been in the year before. I think one thing that gets said all the time is, like, to have a coach that has you bought in, right? A coach that cares about a lot about your players. And you can see that week to week from Kalani. He's really, really good. He's really, really good at that. And whenever they make a big play or need a big moment, those guys always tend up having a big moment for him. And what a decision that was made to start a true freshman in Bear Bachmeier. He made a really tough decision to pull the trigger on that during a time where it was close to the season. Jake Retzlaff just had that accusation of having, sexual relations with a girl, while enrolled there, which is against one of BYU's rules, and was kicked out of BYU. And now he's on Tulane and having a pretty good year. That could have been such a distraction for a team, but how Kalani dealt with that and was able to come to a hard decision to put this team's hands inside of Bear, to put this team in Bear Bachmeier's hands moving forward was such a great decision. And now what is going to be the storyline at the end of this year, and I think that they can make it, I think they could end up making a true run in the college football playoff. This could be one of those teams that starts with a lower seed that works their way up until like the second or third round into the playoffs. And we're thinking about these guys maybe having national championship contender hypes. Their team is that good, man. LJ Martin and the guys. LJ Martin was a true freshman, not that long ago. Chase Roberts, I believe, is still on that team. We talked about him the other day. Not still on the team, but I think he's still healthy. He's had some injuries over the years. But Chase Roberts coming in there, and Chase Roberts played with Jaren Hall. Chase Roberts played with Keaton Slovis. Chase Roberts played with Jake Retzlaff, and now he's playing with a true freshman. What a weapon that Bear Bachmeier has out there. And so right now, I think BYU is the scariest team in college football that we're not talking about. All right. So game of the week, man. Game of the week is it's one of those ones where you really have to take a step back and you have to think to yourself, how can a group of 6 matchup be like this? Well, USF has beat some good teams. Memphis doesn't lose at home. These guys have one loss on both of their records. They are X factors and the best group of 6 teams that are out there right now, in my opinion. And this is definitely one of the games of the year that we have circled right now. I couldn't wait for this matchup to come up. The only thing that would have made this a little sweeter is if Memphis didn't lose last week. But I think that loss came at a really good time. There was no better loss that any team took in college football so far than that loss right now, because they can propel themselves against a number 18 USF. Let's get into USF, man. The thing about USF that makes this so great is they upset teams. Week 1, they upset number 25 Boise State. Week 2, they upset number 13 Florida. And they've been one of the highest scoring teams in football all year. They've been putting what do the young kids say? They've been putting belt to ass. Their only loss was the number 5 Miami, which is a great loss to take if you're going to take one as a group of 5 school. And they're sitting there pretty at number 18. They had a direct path to the college football playoff until this week. If they beat Memphis, hats off to them. They're making it there. They're this year's Boise State from last year. Byron Brown has been sensational, man. But I think the strength of their team relies with him staying in the game, right? If something happens to Byron Brown, they may be in a lot of trouble. And hats off to Alex Golish and what he's doing out there for USF. I think he's been absolutely sensational for them. And their team is really, really good while Byron Brown is out there. He's super dynamic. And I think, honestly, a lot of people talk about NFL aspirations for guys. He's one of those guys that can fly under the radar really, really quickly. But you get over to Memphis, and they've had one of the best home advantages in football in general. Ryan Silverfield and Memphis have been completely awesome. They had a 9-game home winning streak until they lost against UAB this past weekend. But again, we go back to what I said before. The best loss that you could have taken was against them after they fired their coach. And this has now fired up Memphis to take this thing even further than they have. Y'all heard about this other quarterback on the other side? We talked about Byron Brown, but have we talked about Brendan Lewis? Man, if y'all don't know, now you know. This guy played at Nevada last year, and all of us that were a part of ECG at the time were super impressed by that kid week 1, and we kept up with him. When he entered the transfer portal and he went to Memphis, that was one of the ones I said, man, to everybody, this one's going to fly under the radar, but I'm telling you, it's going to be something serious. He's super dynamic. And he reminds me a lot of, these guys are so similar in the way that they play. Devin Dampier, who was at New Mexico last year and transferred to Utah. So he made a progressive move as well. Even though I think Devin has a little bit more in the toolkit, but their styles remind me so much of each other. Just true dual threat guys that can get it done. And Sutton Smith at running back has been one of the best running backs in the country that nobody talks about. And Memphis is currently ranked 24th in points allowed in the country on their defense. Both Memphis and USF are ranked in the top 10 in takeaways, though. USF is number 1 with 2.7. Memphis is number 9 with 2. So when we do this breakdown, man, there's a lot of things to consider. Home field advantage for Memphis, but USF has got Byron Brown. Memphis just took a loss to UAB and they may be fired up, but USF has got 2.7. They get 2.7 takeaways a game. USF has got Jalen Schuler, who's one of the best linebackers in the country. 30 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. But as a whole, Memphis's defense should be better in this game than what a lot of people are giving them credit for. Me and Don are taking Memphis in this game. I love USF. I thought that they had a clear shot until you start understanding how good that Memphis is as a football team. I think this is going to be a great game. Do not bet on this game. This is one of those games that you put on, you sit back and you enjoy, and you just let this ride out and see 2 dynamic quarterbacks do their thing and see great defensive players on USF go do their thing against Brendan Lewis and see a great defense, how they defend a dynamic guy like Byron Brown. Ryan Silverfield and Alex Golish, they're really going to have to bring the best of their coaching prowess in this game for sure. This is one of the games of the week. Let's get into our predictions for week 9, man. Almost done wrapping up this show. Appreciate you guys in the chat. So we already saw the game yesterday between Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky. Don picked Western Kentucky. I picked Louisiana Tech. Wah, wah, wah. He's got one win over me right now. Wake Forest versus SMU. So SMU's known to upset people like Georgia Tech. But SMU's got Kevin Jennings and the boys over there. RJ Maryland. Rhett Lashley is their coach. But look, I'm picking Wake Forest, man. Great defensive team against a high-powered offense in SMU. I think this is another upset that happens in the ACC, and Wake Forest has got 2 conference wins that are pretty significant in the ACC. Navy and FAU. This is not even a contest, in my opinion. Wait, did Don pick FAU? Hold up, Don. Did Don pick FAU? Did I get that right? No, I'm sorry. Don picked Navy on this. I messed up and put FAU. So me and Don, he should have picked Navy. I'm about to change his answer. So I'll update the graphic here in a little bit. And then Arizona State versus Houston is going to be one of the games of the week too, man. I'm picking the upset here. I think Houston and everything that they got going on there, Connor Wegman and Dean Connors, all those guys have been playing at a very, very high clip. Give me Houston. And I think, if you guys pick Arizona State and what Sean Leavitt and Jordan Tyson and Raleek Brown are doing out there, I think you're in good hands. Washington, Illinois. This is an interesting game. The tickets are really cheap. So if you guys live in Washington, I think nosebleeds are $18 right now. We both pick Washington. Look, I'm not a big Luke Altmaier fan, and I understand how good their team is, but there's too many dynamic weapons. Jonah Coleman, Damon Williams, Boston, like all those guys are really, really good on that offense. I don't think they crush Illinois, but having home field advantage and the weapons that they have are going to be really, really good. Miami of Ohio and Western Michigan. Me and Don pick Western Michigan. Look, whatever happened to Daquan Finn going back to the MAC and being up there playing quarterback, that the dude has like 6 or 7 interceptions this year. It's nasty work. Fresno State has been disappointed. They don't know who they want as their running back. And, EJ Warner has not been the best. But Don's picking Fresno. I'm picking San Diego State. I'm a big fan of Sean Lewis and what he's got going on out there. He's got those guys bought into the system. They're running the ball well. Their quarterback is playing better football at this point in time. Give me Sean Lewis and the Sons of Montezuma. Vandy and Mizzou. Don's riding off the hype of Mizzou. But here's the X factor. That defense, that front 7 for Mizzou is something serious. Diego Pavia he's the leading rusher on their team right now. He's not going to be able to do that shit against Mizzou. Yeah, give me Mizzou all day in this one. Last but not least, App State versus Old Dominion. Old Dominion leads in pretty much every single category in the Sun Belt right now. They're a high-scoring offense. They play really good defense. Sometimes they get scored on a lot, but their offense is going to carry them through this game. And App State just hasn't been as good as they were in the past. Whatever happened to them, man, they need their powers back. Now let's get over to the betting corner, man. 4-6 last week. We had one perfect week. Plus 25.5 for UCLA. I love Indiana. I think they had the team to just go and crush everybody the rest of the year. I think they could go undefeated, win the Big Ten championship, and possibly be in a college football playoff championship. but UCLA's been a pretty good team. I think they at least get like 23 points in this, or they get close by like 23 points in the game. But hey, I think that's easy money right there. Give me plus 4.5 with Memphis. Regardless of how you slice this game, I think Memphis is going to be within 3 points of this game, even if they do lose. I think that's easy money there. Over-unders. For BYU at Iowa State, take the over 49.5. I know Rocco Becht and the guys have been getting crushed, and not crushed in the sense of that they've been getting beat really bad. There's just the expectations have been getting crushed for them as they started out really hot, and BYU is just going to keep scoring on you. So yeah, definitely give me the over in that game. And then the under 62.5. I think this is way too high. I think this is a one-sided affair. FAU's not going to score a ton of points, but I think Navy will put up several points like they have been. But I don't think combined that score is going to go over 62.5. Then money line upset Minnesota at Iowa. I think they got the juice to let it loose against Iowa, man. I didn't mean to have that rhyme there. That was super corny. I think they had the juice to get by them. And then Arkansas State, Jalen is a really good quarterback out there. Georgia Southern is, not as good as what we thought they were going to be. I just think the offense is going to get them over the hump against Georgia Southern. Go ahead and give me Arkansas State in that one. But that's been it, guys. That's the show. That is the show for this week. And let's get over here. I want BYU in the Big Ten. Why in the Big Ten? Really like Jaren Hall that year. Once a school gets a coach like Kalani or shows his love for the game along with his players, ain't going nowhere because they change the culture and their standards. It's a great comment, man. In my opinion, Florida is a better job. Gainesville is a city with a lot of activities plus no state tax. Could be. Elijah, appreciate you, man. He said, great show, ECG. Hey, man. Y'all have been great, man. I appreciate y'all. If you guys didn't catch this, it'll be up for the replay. Go back and watch the replay. If not, I'll chop these up throughout the week and put these out just in case you want to rewatch it and get fulfilled with some of the knowledge on this side of the house. But I appreciate you guys, man. Enjoy the games this week. Enjoy the game tomorrow for Thursday Night Football on the NFL side and the college side. Just some college games going on right now. Let me see. Let's see. Like that you did a show later in the day so I can watch the show. It wasn't intentional. I needed to get some things done yesterday. So yeah, Delaware's leading 31-21 over Middle Tennessee in the fourth. New Mexico State and Missouri State are tied at halftime. It's 7 points apiece. Interesting. All right, so let me catch up on those games, guys. Appreciate you guys watching this one, and